When Jorge Chaides was 16 years old, he lost his mother in a traffic accident. He didn't speak English at the time, but he was the one responsible for navigating the local highway patrol office to secure the insurance reports his family needed. He expected a cold, bureaucratic process. Instead, the officers treated him with a level of patience and professionalism that stayed with him long after he left the building. That encounter changed Jorge's trajectory. He decided then that he would eventually wear the same uniform, providing that same clarity and help to people who arrived at the station just as lost as he had been. By 1985, Jorge patrolled the Central Division as a crisis unfolded across Fresno, Visalia, and Bakersfield. Data showed a massive overrepresentation of Hispanic surnames in fatal collisions and DUI arrests. Rates involving the migrant community vastly exceeded the regional average, indicating a public safety breakdown. Reactive enforcement wasn't working. Writing more tickets didn't address the underlying issue, a community that didn't understand the laws and didn't trust the people enforcing them. The language barrier had created a wall. Without a way to communicate safety education, the highway patrol remained an outside force, and the accident rates continued to climb. To break the cycle, the CHP secured a 2-year grant specifically to fund a Spanish-language outreach program. Jorge called it El Protector. The goal was to reframe the officer as a neighbor, someone the community could approach for help before a tragedy occurred, rather than someone who only appeared afterward to issue a citation. Success required an endorsement from the most trusted figure in the valley, Cesar Chavez. Chavez gave the program his full support, providing Jorge with open airtime on his radio station and direct access to the isolated labor camps where thousands of migrant workers lived and worked. With the United Farm Workers' support, the highway patrol was no longer seen as an interloper. The gates to the camps opened and the dialogue finally began. Jorge knew that for the program to work, they had to move away from the intimidating symbols of the job. Officers began appearing in casual clothes, black jeans and polo shirts, speaking to workers in their native Spanish rather than through an interpreter. They spent their time in city parks and labor halls, turning DMV handbooks into trivia games and handing out water bottles. They were teaching the rules of the road in a setting that felt like a community gathering rather than an interrogation. By removing the traditional friction of a police encounter, the department found that people were finally willing to listen to the safety message. The results were immediate. By the end of the 2-year pilot, accidents across the Central Division had plummeted by 24%. The success in the Valley led the CHP to take the program statewide. Jorge was eventually sent to Washington, D.C. to help create a manual so other states could replicate the model. The initiative eventually grew into the SAFE program, which expanded the focus to the specific vehicles used to transport agricultural workers to the fields. Officers began inspecting these transport buses on site, ensuring tools were secured and seating was safe. They were preventing mass casualty accidents before the workers ever reached the highway. Officer Aldo Garcia, one of the current leaders of the program, was once a 12-year-old boy picking grapes in these same vineyards. He grew up seeing El Protector officers in his community and at his school. Seeing people who shared his heritage in those uniforms is what led him to join the force 38 years later. The 24% reduction in accidents proved that safety education works when the messenger is trusted. For the CHP, representing the community became a prerequisite for protecting it. This has been Wisdom for Your Day. For more content, subscribe and follow on YouTube and Spotify podcast by the same name.